throw out a couple ads.
Where are you putting those up at? What's the direct link? I'll put some out on my socials. Oh, I see it. Twitch TV/Monday Morning Gasoline.
That's right.
Cool.
Just gonna throw it up on LinkedIn. I'll throw it up on there after. Oh, actually, no. Let's do that before. It's even better.
Let's do it live.
All right, let's do it. All right, you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right, let's do it.
I'm ready to go.
Good morning, Internet, and welcome to the first ever Monday Morning Gasoline. And my guest today for our first go is Jason Nunnelley. Jason, thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Not like it's early or anything.
No, and on our off day, right?
Who has an off day? What does that even mean?
Very true. It just means I have less meetings.
Less meetings.
That's right. Well, so the goal of Monday Morning Gasoline is to get people started with their week, to give them a little bit of news and to introduce them to someone who is doing cool stuff. And, out of all my friends, not only did I think that, well, you're one of my best technology friends that's actually doing cool stuff. You're the CEO of Upgrade Media, and you guys make websites and apps for everything from multinational corporations to music artists. So, that's kind of a really wide range, and how do you do that? How do you service both music artists and, financial multinationals?
Believe it or not, that's actually been a point of contention in a lot of early stage engagements. People want to know, well, what's the relationship between, an artist that sells, rum or concert tickets in a multinational bank, or in, even things like a one of the clients we had was one of the most interesting clients we had was we did branding, the website, and actually the messaging, which is not what we lean into right now, for a company that did forensics accounting. And they wanted to know what the relationship was. And I said, well, the technology is all the same. The rules are the same. People like good interfaces. They like things to work quickly. It needs to be simple. And the technology underpinning all that is the same across the board. Best practices are best practices. But in client services, as you know, you have to deal with the personalities. And interestingly enough, those personalities are kind of different. The ones in the music industry are they're very sort of drop of the hat. The timing, the scheduling of things is very ad hoc. Whereas in the commercial world, more, sort of blue chip Fortune 500 type work, those calendars tend to be 90, 120 out, not, hey, we're launching an album Friday. Sorry, let's change these things.
So does that extra time give you more flexibility to develop things better, or does it end up being, just something that gets the same? You end up spending the same amount of time on it. It's just about it, 90 days ahead of time.
It's better. There's no question having more time is better because you can communicate with people more. The hardest part of this business is getting people to tell you the whole story. that for some reason people like to hold a little bit close to vest. They sort of drip the truth out bit by bit. Oh, and by the way, we have to use single sign-on. Oh, by the way, we have to, meet these security criteria we didn't tell you about. And getting ahead of the game a little bit helps. But one of the interesting things about working with the higher end market, or the more they pay better, right? They're bigger market. But one of the interesting things about that is a lot of times we do really interesting work no one ever sees, which that's happened to us one time in the music industry. We built a really cool custom campaign, and the artist just last minute decided he didn't think it was cool enough for him to promote it. He killed the project. It was a really cool product. We probably ought to go dig it up, sell it to somebody at some point because it was a good idea. We put a ton of work into it. We did it under the wire. We built a tool that should have taken 3 to 4 months. We built it in about a week, put all hands on deck. But, normally in the music industry, when they tell you they want something and it goes live, once you get it done, it's 10 seconds before they go on stage. You've got to go live. Whereas in the commercial services to blue chips, you'll often have a product that you spend 3, 4, 6 months on. An executive takes a look at it and goes, yeah, and that's it. It gets demoed in some private room and no one ever puts it out. The world never sees it. So a lot of it has to do with ego. You know how it is. You've worked in this space. It's very ego pleasing to see your work go live and see people appreciate it. And there's less of that in sort of the blue chip space.
So you don't get that, so and so A-list artist or B-list artist, talked about something I made, or a million people saw it this month. But do you get? I mean, but is it a little bit more substantial though, right? Right? What is it? I guess it gets.
It's all about the cheese. It's all about the cheese. You just get paid better.
That's pretty substantial.
It's pretty substantial. When you're paying people's payrolls, especially, I only have mature professionals. I don't have a lot of junior developers working with me, so they expect to be paid. And having the cheese makes a big difference. Having the paycheck makes a huge difference. But yeah, there's an ego thing. It, and you know how it is too. You have just as much knee jerk response in the creative services to entertainment space, where you have people that make last minute decisions and they're constantly changing things, and you may put a cool project up, but they don't put advertising behind it, so no one ever sees it. You may put a cool website up, and then the artist comes back last minute and decides they don't like the color scheme, or they don't, they think it'd be cooler if it looked like this other artist's website. So there's a little bit of that in all creative services, but the big difference between sort of the big blue chip client and by the way, we're not dealing with any, this isn't bottom feeder on either side. I've got multi-Grammy award winning artists that we built websites for. And then, I've got Fortune 500 multinationals. And in a similar way, they're both equally demanding, that they expect top service. But what's interesting is, you do get a little more touchy feely. You get a little more, slap on the back from the artist side, but you pay for it literally in large sums of cash you're giving up, because they're typically very low budget projects.
So it sounds like
Even when you work for a multinational music business, you're getting very, very low pay.
And full disclosure, me and you worked at two different agencies, right? One focused on music artists and one focused on businesses. And I remember getting those 5:45 Friday calls. Those things, we would joke about it that, 4:45 Friday calls. And we need a new, sign up. We have a concert tonight. Can you get that up this afternoon? So that was a constant recurring theme as we went through the websites. But some of that happened with businesses as well, right? I guess with small businesses, not quite multinationals, but with mom and pop retailers, and I guess businesses that can move quickly. But
Well, that goes to the whole ticket. There's the sort of the hot crazy dynamic, right? the hot crazy dynamic. It works that way with clients too. The more sort of new and cutting edge the client is, and the more sort of close to the bone the client's running. If you bring on board a brand new customer trying brand new things, they're going to be the 445, 455 call on Friday. If you're dealing with a very large company that moves, like an ocean liner, not like a Corvette, you're not getting a lot of 5 minutes till five calls because those people went home. Everyone there's clocking in their 40-hour week and they're going home, and they're not interested in making your life difficult on Friday because that takes effort. The person calling you 5 till 5 on Friday, working for a small client services business like, the local restaurant that just opened, or the small startup that just launched. Those are people that are still heavily invested, and at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, they're still at work. And you remember one of the things about the music industry was it seemed like these people worked for nothing and worked all the time. So everyone in the music industry is bending over backward to make something happen. And at the big side of corporate America, you just have people that respect calendars a little bit more. They go home at 5 o'clock on Friday. They're not, oh, whoops. That doesn't happen as much.
It's true, and I mean, I guess that's part of why they're slower to get things done often. So let's switch a little
Well,
bit.
I should say they pay real slow too, right? You need to be ready to pay. You got to, financially speaking, you need to be ready to wait 6 months to get paid with a lot of these bigger clients.
while
It's
they
just part
get
of it.
while they get you
Yeah.
into their system, while they get you approved, get the PO order.
Right. Right. Three CFO interviews to get approval for the purchase order that you've already halfway worked out, that kind of stuff.
So I wanted to cover a couple news items today that I thought might be interesting to you. So let's see. I don't think my transition is gonna work, just because first day, and I forgot to switch the audio for it. But the first item was a VentureBeat article about no code, and low code. How
Mhm.
you know that should be something that we should all be paying attention to now. And you know, as someone who's been in development for 4 years for app development, but how many years have you really developed? I think 20, 23.
Yeah, I've been in technology for 23 years, and 20 of those we've been developing applications.
I'm sorry, not four, yeah. But Upgrade Media itself has been around, right, for 4 years now.
Yeah, Upgrade Media is 4 years old. We started in what year is it? 17. We started January 17. I left Telegraph and started my own creative services business.
So, do you guys use no code, low code type of things like Ionic or Phone Gap or React Native?
Yeah, I take issue with the term low code, and I think lumping those together is dangerous because there are service providers out there that do drag and drop application development. Even Salesforce has a tool for that. We do a lot of work with React Native, and normally it's really important to understand, the idea behind React Native. People say it's write once, run anywhere. React and the team that built it have never said that. React Native is a framework to write one language. So what React Native does is it translates, say, JavaScript or TypeScript into a native code base, and there's some handling in that. So you can repurpose most of your source code. But keep in mind, anytime you want to touch things on a very low level, like if you want to do camera manipulation, GPS, do really slow drip backend data synchronization, that kind of thing. Those are typically not handled in the SDK or the APIs that are provided in those, low code tools. And you're gonna have to get down to Objective C or Swift if you're on iOS, or Android if you're on. I'm sorry, Android will be on Java.
Java, yeah.
So
Well,
you're,
okay.
you're still gonna have to get down into the bones. It's just gonna speed the process up.
Well,
My
so
team
let's.
does.
Sorry about that. So you guys use React Native, right?
Yeah, we use React Native, right? And
So
we're playing with Flutter. Flutter's cool too.
so maybe. I was incorrect to add React Native to that group. But for how about things like Salesforce, for example? Now, at one of the companies I was at in 2018, Blue Line, we had a Salesforce app responsible for getting signatures from customers, and it seemed to work okay. You know, so is that something that development shops should be looking into as far as, oh well, I can rapidly prototype this for my customer, so to see if they like it, and increase the velocity at which we get feedback, or is
Yeah,
that a dead end?
we're talking about prototyping, and I'll be really clear about this. If we're talking about prototyping, I think these tools and these resources are fantastic. So, for example, if you're going to, take whether it's Sencha Ionic, which I think are, not really appropriately placed in the low code, no code, but those are actually good prototyping tools as well for very purpose driven prototypes. And Salesforce.com, if you're using Salesforce's product and you're creating forms versus hard coding those forms, clearly there's some advantages to that. If you ever dealt with Salesforce APIs, which we both have done before, right? We worked on a project together at Telegraph where we had to deal with two projects at Telegraph where we had to work on Salesforce API, and they were a nightmare. It's very not greatly documented, difficult to work on. Drag and drop tools, if you could take, a Salesforce tool like they have now and just drop it into that project, would have been perfect. It's just like building a WordPress website, right? There's a time and a place to build a purpose-built application for a web app, and then WordPress off the shelf works perfectly fine for 99% of websites if you're not doing something really creative or really interesting.
Yeah, I've been having a hard time of saying, maybe this is better than WordPress because WordPress just does so much. But at a low, no code side, Wix. Have you played around with Wix any, or one of those,
Yeah,
super simple website builders?
yeah, and Webflow. So Webflow and Wix both very different purposes. Webflow is very much for creating beautiful experiences, point and click. And then over on Wix, it's very drag and drop, point and click for just throwing something up quickly. I'm not personally a fan of Wix because I think there's so many problems when you start doing any kind of integration. First of all, I don't own it, right? And the advantage of something like WordPress um, or even Ghost, right? Something what's nice about those projects is you can take them, put them on your own server, you can scale them to your own purposes. You can really hack down to the core. Whereas with Wix, you're kind of stuck whatever Wix wants you to do. But if you're concepting, throwing a Wix site up and playing around with it really quick is not a bad way to prototype a concept. And I would say the same thing for Shopify. I've gotten complaints again, about using Shopify. A lot of times people, like Magento, for example, which can be heavily customized and do some really cool stuff with e-commerce. Shopify's got some very hard limits on things like, just like layered categorization is such a nightmare inside of that tool. But if you're throwing up an online store with 5 products, it's kind of hard to beat. 10 minutes you're online. Time is money. So anything you can do to shorten that timeline on prototyping is a good idea.
Yeah, I remember hitting a variant limit on a Shopify conversion with you, where Shopify just wouldn't support more than 100 variants. And what is a variant? You end up doing a conversion, and then do these tools without a professional? Do they end up locking you into something that okay, well, this is a great prototype, but then you really have to start over. Like in my experience, at least, I have not been able to take that, and then it can get you 50% of the way there, but then you're kind of stuck, right? You're stuck
Well,
with.
when I talk about prototyping, that's my issue with people who are, design companies or development companies that choose to use these limiting, we'll call them, you know, beginners tools, right? These beginners tools, low code tools, write once, run anywhere kind of tools. The problem with these tools, especially in native application development, is they're just simply not one size fits all. They don't solve all problems. They're a very specific, limited prototype, and exactly what you're talking about. Well, it was great to proof the concept, put 50 products on a store, but when we started having, this variant you're talking about, what happens if you got t-shirts and we got size and we got color and we have like, pattern. Once you get into a certain cocktail of problems, or different variants, the variant was the cocktail of all those in one. That was the peculiar way that that Shopify handled those things, right? So if you had five of one, five of one, and five of one, you're beyond that. We five, five, and five, right? Three drop downs with five each. We're already past the limit.
Yeah.
So, this goes to what the number one thing that I try to do, and I will tell you, it gets the most resistance and it makes clients the least happy, is plan ahead. No one likes to plan ahead. Read my
Plan
mind.
ahead, Jason. Wow.
I know. Plan it. Like if you just sat down and looked at, look at the tool you're using and look at the ask from the client. You take these two things and put them together and see where there's potential problems ahead of time, map it out, put it on a whiteboard, stick it, God forbid on Jira or, GitHub and look at get your milestones planned out. And then here's a question that I always ask ahead of time. What are the problems that could arise, right? What are the limitations that could arise building this application? And what I find is almost all shortcuts cause problems, right? And explaining that to a client who says, look, it's going to cost us $100,000 to do this and $10,000 to do this, right? What does every client in the world say?
$10,000, of course, yeah.
Yeah, right? Well, there's probably a hiccup down the road with the $10,000 solution. We're going to have to refactor the whole thing when we get there, but we can repurpose all the stuff we've learned, right? So the whole point of prototyping is to learn. The point of prototyping is you're going to have to refactor it. But a lot of times clients, whether they be big clients or small, don't understand that $10,000 or $50,000 you spent on that solution that's now maxed out and we can't go further, it's tossed, right? That investment's gone. And you've paid to learn and you've paid to test and experiment. It's very, very hard to get clients who've not done 5 or 10 projects before to understand that process. It gets you in trouble.
Sounds good. All right, so I think we're running a little bit late. We got 9 minutes left. I'm sorry. I definitely could be better at scheduling, I guess. Is that the right word?
Reining in your co-host.
No, I'm not good at that. I'll get better though. All right, so you went to Bogota last week, and I really wanted to ask you about that. Well, one, what did you do in Bogota, and two, how is traveling right now?
Traveling's a pain. It's very messy. A client called me literally last minute, booked me days before we got on the plane, wanted me to go down to Bogota to help onboard his development team. So the project was to teach them the process to be in person and onboard them. Do a little wining and dining, which was really nice. Bogota's got some fantastic restaurants. It's a great little city. 8 million people, not exactly little. 8,600 feet. Bring your CPAP. Plan to breathe deep. It's up there. But anyway, traveling was painful. You have to do a PCR test 72 hours before you get on a plane, which is more difficult than you think. And especially in Bogota, it's really hard to get a test in Bogota because there's long lines. It's very time consuming. And the job was really fun. I got to bring talented, mature developers on board with just agile processes. So it was really cool.
Nice. So you had to get a test there as well, right, before coming back, and that was the...
I'll admit I did something a little sketchy. There's a CDC guideline that says if you've had COVID and recovered from it in the last 90 days, you're considered immune by US CDC standards. And American Airlines, the airline I flew back on, said that if you had evidence of recovery, it said 72 hours or evidence of recovery. So I had a test here the day before I flew down, and then I just used that test as evidence because I've had COVID of immunity to fly back, which I will admit the Colombians, it's a compound sentence. It's kind of complicated. Spanish being their first language, they weren't really, the American Airlines policies in English. We had a conversation about that. I did get on a plane and get home.
Excellent. Well, welcome back.
Thank you. So flying's a pain. You should know that.
Well, I haven't had to fly yet, but I'm I'm actually excited to fly. I'm excited to travel again. It's I think everyone's a little excited to travel. How's the weather down there? Because here, I think it's like 17 degrees outside right now.
Oh, Bogota is phenomenal. It's 70, 75, in the daytime. It'll get up to 80 on a warm day. It's in the 50s, the 40s at the low end in the evening. It's just, well, Bogota's like that 12 months out of the year.
Oh man,
It's just beautiful. It's near the equator. It's at 8,600 feet, so it's not hot. It's absolutely gorgeous just almost all year round. It rains, I think, for a couple of months a year. We weren't there during the monsoon season. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to Bogota, it's nice and a lot safer than it used to be.
I guess the Civil War has kind of died down, and everybody's making money now,
Well,
focused on
yeah,
business.
it's still there's still a lot of desperation. There's a lot of people coming in from Venezuela. There's a lot of expats from Venezuela escaping poverty. But they signed the FARC and the government signed a ceasefire. Kidnappings are down 94% since the ceasefire was
Oh,
signed, which, quite frankly, for an American, is your biggest concern. I don't care if I get mugged. That's no big deal. I didn't carry. I didn't wear a nice watch or anything.
fair enough. All right, we have 5 minutes left, and as part of the motivation thing, I wanted to ask you, what book can you recommend to me and to our viewers? Apparently not now, but later today when they wake up on their off day. What can they read to get started for this week? What's gonna
To
amp them
me,
up?
if you can, I'm going to give you two books. If you can absorb it, Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink. I think if you can read Extreme Ownership and understand that it's a business philosophy book. But if you'll absorb everything he says and take total ownership of everything, life, health, everything, you're gonna be a happier person. You won't feel like a victim. The second book, which I think it has a lot of similar messages, but David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. That's a tough book to read. There's a lot of personal stories in there that are very hard to listen to or to read. But David Goggins is this guy he went through SEAL training three
Oh,
times.
wow.
This guy's hard as a rock. Then went on to be an ultra marathoner. And one of the things I've told you before is the thing that I find most fascinating about David Goggins. This is a guy that we recently found out. I think it was 2010, 2011. Had during all this SEAL training three times, running ultra marathons. This guy had a hole in
That's
his heart. He
crazy.
was born with a hole in his heart and had 25% less functionality in his upper chambers than we are normally born with.
So really, it's all about the will, the will
There's a
to
lot of mind
succeed.
over matter in that guy. Yeah.
So I have to be honest. So I've already, well, I didn't read Extreme Ownership, but I did listen to it on audiobook, and I'm definitely gonna try the David Goggins "Can't Hurt Me" book as well. That sounds like excellent motivation. Uh,
Yeah.
Jason, we're almost out of time. Is there anything you want to say about Upgrade Media and your day to day? Give us a little ad for the audience.
All pitch for Upgrade. Well,
Absolutely.
Upgrade Media builds prototypes and 0 to 1 projects, so we can do any kind of software development. We have a set of stack that the baseline. So a lot of this stuff, sort of like setting up user accounts, setting up scalability, databases, GraphQL APIs. We have all that stuff done. So one of the nice things about coming to work with Upgrade Media is if you have a completely unique 0 to 1 project to develop, we're about 30% of the way there already. You just plug and play. We got a great team, full-time group of mature top end developers. So we're ready to rock. We're ready to take jobs right now.
Excellent. Jason, thank you so much for joining me on the first ever Monday Morning Gasoline. Guys, thank you all for watching. Um, wow, man. We did it.
We did it.
High five. We did it.
Woo.
Bye. Have an awesome week, y'all. Do, 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 do. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.